As a pharmacist, have you ever wondered what roles you can have in biotech? Today, I'm sitting with Rachel Hawley, PharmD, to talk about the different career paths an individual with a pharmacy degree can take in industry, such as medical affairs or clinical development, to regulatory, commercial, and even startup opportunities. Hi, I'm your friend in STEM, Mary, and welcome to When in STEM podcast, the podcast where we make science and healthcare careers for human, honest, and accessible. Watch the full episode to learn what a career in biotech with a pharmacy degree can look like and the skills and mindset it takes to succeed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the episode. Rachel, I'm so excited you're here. Thank you so much for coming into my living room.
Oh, you have a gorgeous living room.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so excited to dive into the world of pharmacy and just learn more about the industry and pharma and as a pharmacist, where you can go. So I want to ask you the first question. When you look back at the very beginning, what was the moment that first pulled you toward pharmacy?
So it would take me back to high school. I remember taking those kind of like personality tests that you would do as part of some of your standardized exams. And most of my answers would lead to getting something in the life sciences. I really enjoyed chemistry. I really liked biology. I grew up and my grandma was a nurse and I had an anatomy dissection lab. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm dissecting a worm. Like, I don't know if I could dissect a person or, like deal with blood and guts. So when I was thinking about, okay, I want to work in life sciences and healthcare potentially, what could that look like that may not be as involved? So that kind of ruled out going to medical school or going to nursing school. But like I said, I really enjoyed my chemistry classes and pharmacy seemed like an interesting career path. So I think I thought of pharmacy all the way back in high school. And some people that go to pharmacy school know right off the bat. And there are 6-year pharmacy programs where you can do undergrad and pharmacy in 6 years and have a bachelor's degree and a doctorate. I don't think I was that committed. I wanted to get my feet wet still. So I went to a small private liberal arts college in Wisconsin and got my bachelor's in chemistry and biology. And while I was there, I worked in a community pharmacy just to get some experience and see what that was like. I really enjoyed it, but wanted to learn more about other types of pharmacy that were out there when I started pharmacy school. And when I started pharmacy school, I was working in a hospital. So I got more clinical inpatient pharmacy experience. But that was kind of the origin of it, was like way back in high school, just like most people that I talked to who did pharmacy, they wanted to work with people, make a difference in someone's life. And they also just had passion for the life sciences.
Well, I do want to go back to when you said that you worked at a community pharmacy. You only had a bachelor's in chemistry and biology. How did that work out?
Yeah, so I was working while I was getting my bachelor's. So I was just working part-time as a pharmacy technician. And I think that's a really important thing that people should do if they're considering pharmacy is work as a tech, whether they're working in a community pharmacy, like a retail pharmacy, or they're working in a hospital. The techs do so much work, whether you're at like a Walgreens or at a hospital. They're the ones that are often filling the prescriptions, also talking to patients, implementing orders that need to be checked by the pharmacist. So you learn a lot about the workflow and you get hands-on experience and get to kind of shadow what the pharmacist is doing. So yeah, I just worked part-time while I was an undergrad in the community pharmacy.
Did you find that on LinkedIn or how did you know about that?
Yeah, no, it was funny. It was this mom and pop pharmacy in this small town called Ripon, Wisconsin, 6,000 people. And it was just a 5-minute walk from campus. And that's where I would go to get my prescription filled. Or if I needed toothpaste or something, I would just pop in. And I knew other students at the college that worked there that were interested in pharmacy. So I would go in once a quarter and ask the head pharmacist, do you have any job openings? I'm interested in working. And he would be like, no, not now, but maybe come back next semester and see if anything's open. So I think it was maybe my sophomore or junior year when I started working there. But I literally just would walk in and be like, do you have anything available yet? And then eventually he was like, okay, I'll hire you.
Wow, you are persistent. You're like, I want this.
And I feel like you don't need to be persistent anymore for that kind of job in pharmacy. They always need pharmacists and techs to work. So I think it's just kind of funny that I was like, no, I want to do this so bad. But yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. And so you also said that you worked as an inpatient pharmacy intern.
Yes,
So that put you like face to face with the reality of patient care.
exactly.
What did that experience teach you about people and about yourself?
A lot. Again, once I graduated from undergrad, I was really determined to learn about another area of pharmacy and get an internship. I went to pharmacy school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I worked as an inpatient pharmacy tech when I was there. And right when I started pharmacy school, when I started as a technician. And as an inpatient tech, you kind of do a variety of things. So all the patients in the hospital still need their daily medications while they're there. So some things that the technicians do is when the patient first comes, say into the emergency department, we'll go and we'll do a med reconciliation, and we'll figure out what all the medications are that they're taking at home. We'll try to figure out when they last took their doses, and then we'll reconcile that with the pharmacist and essentially make sure that they get all of their medications like blood pressure, diabetes, what have you, while they're in the hospital. So that med rec tech was something that I did. And that was a huge way to get like face-to-face interactions with patients. And you never knew like why they were coming into the hospital. Some were, they had a heart attack, or others had an infection.
Mm-hmm.
So you really never knew who was going to come through those doors. And that was the most patient-facing role I would say that I had while I was in the hospital. Other times it was very not patient-facing. Had a area that we called the spa, and it stood for the sterile products area. It was not a
facials.
spa. You were not getting facials. It was not luxurious at all. Like you were head to toe in like PPE essentially to make sure nothing got contaminated, but you were basically in a room with no windows for 8 hours straight, making IV bags, making like cassettes for pain medicine, that sort of thing. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So like you weren't facing the patients at all in that experience, but you were kind of seeing, you were getting a feel for what patients were taking while they were in the hospital, depending on what unit they were on. And I started pharmacy school in 2019. And in 2020 was when COVID really hit and got bad. So that was something that I experienced the entire time while I was working in the inpatient pharmacy. I remember getting like a digital note basically from a pharmacist. I had to hand deliver a med because it was high cost. It couldn't go through the tubing system. And the note said, please wear a mask when delivering this med. And I had never worn like, you know, a mask before. I had never been part of a pandemic before. So that was like a very pivotal point in my like pharmacy career that I remember. And then from then on, like I feel like it really transformed in terms of what patient-facing care looked like because we were all taking
You're in the front
serious
lines.
Yeah, like we were frontline workers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And at some points it got really crazy with like patients coming in for like respiratory depression, not being able to breathe, witnessing codes. Like it was intense. Yeah. So.
And I saw online like during COVID times, they brought like pre-med students right into the hospital because they needed extra hands.
Yeah.
Do you feel like they did the same thing for pharmacy students?
Maybe not directly into the hospital. I think where pharmacy students really got involved was when vaccines became available. My school volunteered a ton in the community once the vaccines were available to host vaccine clinics. So that was something that we did at the hospital when I was working, but then since classes were online, we had a lot more flexibility throughout the day. So me and a lot of my classmates volunteered at COVID vaccine clinics too, and administered them to the community, which was really rewarding. People were really excited. And I remember when the pediatric indication came out, like doing vaccine clinics at elementary schools, and parents were like crying. They were so happy that their like kids were able to get vaccinated. They're like, you can see your grandma after this. So that was like a really moving part of it too.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
And so you did a retail pharmacy, then you did like the patient care hospital, and now you're on an I think people might say not super traditional pharmacy route. So what made you go into that?
Yeah. So now I work in the pharmaceutical industry at a mid-sized biotech. And it basically was the pandemic, I think, that really made me take a step back and think. It was a hard time for everybody who was working as a frontline healthcare employee, and also those that weren't working as a frontline healthcare employee too. Like it was just hard for everyone. Yeah. And it was my first year of pharmacy school, second year of pharmacy school. I was in classes, but then also working part-time. and then volunteering a lot of my time. And I was starting to feel burnt out. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life. And I don't know, I always just saw myself doing something more. I really enjoy like business and strategy. And sometimes when you think of pharmacy as a career, there are opportunities to leverage those types of skills. But when I was thinking about retail, I was like, I don't think I want to be a community pharmacy owner. When it comes to the hospital side, a lot of it is just management. You can grow your career, but I really felt like going into industry was the best opportunity to kind of expand on some of those skills and discover a new area. So I did an internship between my second and third year of pharmacy school at Regeneron, and that was kind of my first experience in industry. But I have to take a step back, and like the big reason that I feel like found out about it and the person that I have to thank is my mom. We were talking earlier and I told you she works in early research and development. She has her master's in pharmacology and toxicology. And I was talking to her about pharmacy way back when and telling her that I was kind of struggling with what I wanted to do with this degree. And she was like, well, I work with quite a few PharmDs in my role, like maybe I can connect you and you can learn more about how they pivoted from pharmacy school to more of an industry role. And from then on, I did the internship, and then I also just networked with so many PharmDs working in different areas of industry. And that was really how I learned, like, okay, this is really exciting and something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my career.
Wow, I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get into knowing about this world? And it's so great to have your mom, like, to help you out and help guide you. And so, since maybe some people out there, like, don't have your mom or don't have, like, someone to tell them how to do it, what's one thing your mom told you that stuck with you when making that leap?
I would say maybe not something that she told me, but just something that I observed during my childhood, like as I grew up with her as my mom. Like before I was born, she got her bachelor's in Spanish and biology. And initially her goal was to work for the National Park Service. She wanted to be like a park ranger. But then she realized, okay, this might be hard to make a living on and support a family on. So she started working in a lab and working with animals and would go in late nights to do testing and do like blood work, that sort of thing. And then once my sister and I were born, she was working in the pharmaceutical industry, but it wasn't until I was in high school that she went back to school and got her master's in pharmacology and toxicology. And I think I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I do just remember like me doing homework and then also seeing her do homework. So I think the big thing that she taught me was you could make a career change or you could go for something at any point in your life. Seeing her do that when she was in her 40s, working full time, raising two daughters, and then also doing school full time to get her master's and continue to grow in her career was really inspiring. So that's something that like I'm very early in my career. It's only been a few years, but it is really inspiring. So I'm like, oh, like what kind of changes or how could I grow when I'm at that point in my life? It's just exciting to think about.
Wow, what an inspiration. She should come on the podcast.
She would love to come.
No, it's honestly because like this podcast is about people like her and people like you who take untraditional routes and do things that people would have thought at that age or would have thought that career path wouldn't be for them exactly. And so that's what it's all about. And that's why you're here, because I know a lot of people who are interested in biology but don't want to do research, but they're not interested in pre-med, and they're interested in pharmacy but not the traditional pharmacy world. And so you're the perfect example, and I think her mom is as well, on like how you could take different opportunities and just go with it and build a career for yourself with that. And so I know I want to talk about a little bit about your fellowship experience. So can you like give us just an explanation for people who don't know what a fellowship is?
Definitely. So I would say there's kind of two buckets, or we'll say three buckets, loosely speaking, when you are graduating from pharmacy school. When I think about my classmates and what they did, some went the community route. They didn't do anything additional. They went and worked for a community pharmacy. The big chunk went on to do a residency, to gain more clinical experience, to specialize in certain areas of medicine like oncology or cardiology, oftentimes to work in a clinic setting or a hospital setting.
That's like Cami.
Exactly like Cami.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly like Cami. We were both just at ASHP mid-year. She was there. I didn't get to see her, but I know she was talking about going to all the residency showcases and meeting with programs to kind of figure out where she wanted to apply. So that's kind of the second route that people often take. And then the third is doing a fellowship. And fellowships are often partnered with an academic institution. So the big ones, I would say if there are the four big ones are Rutgers University, MCPHS, Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, Northeastern University, and University of Southern California. And these programs all partner with different pharma companies and biotech companies all over the country and recruit fellows in a variety of functional areas. Unlike residency, where it's called a PGY1, postgraduate year one residency, which is very general. You rotate through different areas of clinical pharmacy. Fellowships are a little bit more specialized right off the bat. So you decide if you want to apply to, say, a medical affairs type role or a regulatory affairs fellowship, marketing, clinical development, pharmacovigilance, a variety of things. So in that sense, I feel like you need to have a little bit of an understanding of who you are and what area you want to work in long term, because oftentimes you're applying to a very specific program, like the program, the functional area, and sometimes the therapeutic area as well, like immunology as an example. So that's the route that I took. My company was partnered with Northeastern, and fellowships are typically 2 years, but there are some 1-year fellowships too. And oftentimes you get to be part of a big cohort. There were 8 fellows in my class at my company, and we're all still very, very close. But at Northeastern as a whole, I want to say there were probably, 30 to 40 fellows while I was there. Not only is it a great way to get your foot in the door, but also a great way to just make friends and network. We were talking earlier, I grew up in Illinois, went to college in Wisconsin, and then moved out to Boston and was nervous about making friends and living somewhere new. But a lot of my co-fellows were also moving from different states, and it was just nice to kind of all have that new experience together.
Oh, that's awesome. And so for your fellowship, what's the one you applied for?
So I applied, I totaled it up back in the day. I need to look at my Instagram because I made a post about it. But the one that I ended up doing was in U.S. Medical Affairs. So it was like a medical strategy type fellowship. All of the fellowships that I had applied to, I want to say I applied to 10. They were all within medical affairs, but some were more field focused, like medical science liaison type fellowships, and others were more, we use the term in-house fellowships, like medical communications, medical publications, medical strategy. And fellowships often have multiple rounds of interviews with different people on the team. And it wasn't until some of those second, third, final round interviews where I really decided where I wanted to, go based on those conversations and just getting to know the people on the team.
And so for people out there that don't know what medical affairs is, can you sort of give us a quick explanation?
Yes, I feel like none of my explanations are quick. I feel like I'm a very long-winded person because I try to contextualize things.
Oh, you're explaining things in such a great way that I'm like, you're doing great.
I appreciate that. We have a molecule. Let's say the molecule has already been tested in animal models to be shown to be safe. And then we've started looking at it in humans. There's promising data that it is both safe and efficacious. Medical affairs comes in as that bridge between the clinical development and the external community, as well as commercial, to basically educate external stakeholders about our clinical data. So that could be something medical affairs does on in a one-to-one engagement. So I mentioned medical science liaisons. They could be PharmD, PhD, MD, PA, genetic counselor, like a variety of people can be a medical science liaison, and their job is typically to engage with healthcare providers or individuals that would diagnose and manage patients in a certain disease and educate them on the disease state or the clinical trial data of interest. On the other side of things, I mentioned like medical communications, publications. Whenever you see a company come out with like pivotal phase 3 clinical trial data and it's published in the New England Journal of Medicine, that's often the medical affairs publications team that is working with the PI from the study and writing the manuscripts that are then published in scientific journals. So people all around the world can learn about new clinical trial data. Those are kind of two little examples, but another thing medical affairs does is go to conferences. So this past weekend was ASH, the American Society of Hematology, and a lot of my colleagues were at that conference. And when you go to a conference like ASH or say American College of Cardiology, there will be tons of booths advertising products, but also two, sharing new data. So on the advertising product perspective, those are commercial teams. They're still communicating data and trying to get the word out about the product, but commercial's end goal is often to sell or to influence prescriber behavior, whereas medical affairs is all about educating as well as scientific exchange. So like, let me teach you something about our clinical trial data and about our product, but I also want to learn from you what your experience has been like, if what you're seeing in clinical trial data is what you're also experiencing in the real world, and then gathering those insights and bringing them back to the company to help inform our strategy. There's a lot that medical affairs does.
It's not just one bucket.
It's not just one bucket. It's a massive bucket. And the same is true for all functional areas, like regulatory. It's not just talking to the FDA. There's labeling, there's working with scientists, compiling data.
A bunch of reading.
Yes, a lot of reading. So it's hard to summarize it all into one sentence or into like 10 sentences, but that's kind of what medical affairs does.
Yeah. And so from this fellowship, what are some skills you took from that you still hold on to till this day?
A lot. Where do I start? My fellowship was somewhat unique in that I didn't have a second year fellow. So like I said, some fellowships are 2 years. And so there would be an overlap with a second year fellow that you can kind of go to and learn from. My fellowship was new when I started. So I didn't have a second year fellow that I could go to for questions. And that was one skill that I think was really important that I needed to learn at that point in time, was just being self-sufficient and really trying to exhaust all options if I didn't know something. And then once I was like, okay, I don't know where to go from here, I could then go to my boss and be like, I've tried X, Y, and Z, haven't gotten anywhere. What should I do now? So I think that kind of mindset to just be independent and self-sufficient was something that I, going into fellowship, wanted to work on. And it kind of forced me to get better at that because I didn't have a second year fellow that I could go to kind of in the interim. And that's something that's been really valuable, I would say, in my new role. Let me think of what else. I would say, I guess, independence, autonomy, project management is huge. You get some bits and pieces of that when you're in pharmacy school or in grad school, you're studying, you're taking classes. But as a fellow, at least at my company, people are really excited by fellows. They trust us and they give us a lot of autonomy in what we do. So just managing deadlines and projects for different people and staying on top of different deliverables. I'm such a corporate jargon. I know. But that sort of thing too. Like I've always been an organized person, but it was because I needed to be organized for myself. Like I needed to get my own personal deadlines done. But now so many other people are relying on you and the stakes are higher. So that was another big thing that I think I learned in fellowship, was just managing deadlines, managing expectations, and kind of prioritizing things.
And so what's your role right now?
It is a very long job title. So I am a health system medical outcomes science liaison.
What do you do?
What do I do? Yes. I'll kind of break it down by each chunk. Health system, I engage with health systems. And what does that mean? There are so many different people at a health system. I'll bucket into 3 different external employees within a medical affairs team. So we talked about medical science liaisons a little bit, and they're engaging with physicians, prescribers, those that are managing, diagnosing patients. On my team, we also have payer medical outcome science liaisons. So let's say a physician wants to start a patient on a new medication. They write a prescription and it goes to the pharmacy, but the patient's insurance needs to be aware that this product is on the market, and then they also need to approve it. So that's where my team comes in on the payer side, is educating payers like health plans on new clinical trial data and say like, hey, this product was approved. There may be patients that want to start it that fall within your health plan's population. So they need to be aware of it so patients are able to access the medication and afford the medication. So that's kind of 2 chunks. Like MSL is educating the doctor, And then the payer mosuls are educating the health plan. The health system may be involved for more like high touch medications. So, say medications that are administered by a healthcare provider or they're given in an infusion clinic. It's not as straightforward as the provider just sending the prescription to a pharmacy and the patient picking it up. The patient needs to go to the health system and receive the medication. So I work with the people at the health system, also educating them on disease state and clinical data, but then also supporting access pathways and basically ensuring that if a patient were to start a medication, what steps need to be in place to make that process as smooth as possible. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what does a normal week look like?
Highly variable. So I would say customer meetings are probably the biggest thing that we do in the field. They could be either in person, so visiting people at a health system, or also virtual. If it's our first time meeting, doing introductions, kind of talking about the purpose of the engagement and how basically how my team is able to support them and their patients, but then they also often have a lot of questions. And so just having engagements and building relationships and building trust is like the biggest component. But on the other side that I really enjoy is also just some more like in-house work, working on projects, which could be building slide decks that we present to our customers, staying up to date on our own clinical trial data. Companies are always publishing new data, so staying up to date on that. Also knowing what the competitive landscape looks like. What are our competitors doing? What does their data look like? And gosh, what else? And then also just like mentorship, like I said, fellowship is something that's still near and dear to my heart. So I also like to spend time connecting with fellows, especially those at my company, and supporting them in their personal and professional growth as well.
Yeah. So this is so interesting. So for the people listening to this and they're like, okay, you are leaning more on the business side of things.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of, as you said, corporate jargon. Where do you feel like your pharmacy background plays a role? Is it through just the data or is it also patient care? Like how do these two like sort of come together?
That's a really good question. And a reason why I think pharmacists do really well in this type of role. Patient experience, both in a community pharmacy or in a health system, that in itself has, I don't know, just made me a lot more aware of like what the patient journey looks like and kind of understanding just how healthcare works. I never had a rotation in like managed care pharmacy or at a health plan, but that's something else that I think would be really valuable is understanding what that side of medication and patient access looks like. And if it weren't for pharmacy school, I wouldn't have just this understanding of what it looks like for the patient, but then also what it looks like for the pharmacist. I love my colleagues, but for those that have never worked in a pharmacy, I think it's sometimes hard to realize how much these people are juggling. For us, we focus on a handful of disease states and a handful of products, but for them, they have to stay up to date on hundreds of thousands of products and meeting with a variety of different people and putting out fires. So I also think having the perspective from working in a pharmacy and just knowing what their day-to-day looks like and what challenges they face, it allows, I don't know, me to have empathy or just understanding and try to, I don't know, figure out where I fit into conversations with them while also being cognizant of their time and what they need from me.
Yeah. Like you got the patient care aspect from all your experiences to be able to like have that front of like, I understand where you're going through.
Yeah.
In case like other people might directly go into like the biotech pharma route, never really had a one-on-one with a patient.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like a different experience as well.
Yes.
And so with that, so you've worked in every area. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. A handful of them. A lot of them.
Areas, a lot of them.
3 big chunks. Yeah.
What do you feel like people misunderstand about working in a biotech or pharma as a pharmacist?
I would say maybe not as specifically a pharmacist, but I think a lot of either pharmacy students or those from the outside looking in, especially in medical affairs type roles, specifically field-based roles like medical science liaisons, you see them traveling a lot and you think it's
fun.
Like they think it's fun. You're like, They get to go to new cities and explore new conferences, and maybe they're trying new restaurants and stuff. But like anything in life that's like a highlight reel can be really exhausting. I could not imagine being in this type of role, having a family. You're often doing overnight trips or gone for a couple of days at a conference, or you're stacking meetings one day after another just to make things more efficient. So I think people think it's more glamorous than it is. And I definitely had that perspective initially too. It's like, oh, this is so cool. I get to go new places. And you do, and it is fun, but I definitely appreciate being home a lot more. Like I just got back from Las Vegas. I was at a conference and got back at 11 o'clock last night. And I knew weeks ago, I was like, I'm putting PTO in for the rest of the week because I'm just going to be so tired and I need to do laundry.
Oh, for sure.
Get my stuff together.
Yeah, get your life together. Because also with any job, you need the work-life balance too. So I can't even imagine how you can have work-life balance when you have a lot of travels in your plans.
Yeah.
And so how do you manage that?
I'm still figuring it out. It's been a year and a half in this role. I'm not at the point yet where I have 2 phones, but I've been thinking about it. But I don't know. I feel like instead of work-life balance, it's more so work-life integration. I don't know. I think just recognizing what I need and what is best for me when I am traveling, so I don't burn out, so I'm not burning like the candle on both ends. But I think a lot of it is, I don't know, just chunking out my time, and my calendar may be empty for a given day, but I still like to go in and block out like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to be working on this project. And then from this time to this time, I'm going to be preparing for this meeting. And it helps to give more structure. I think that's another misconception people have just from like working remotely or working from home. Like it can be really challenging to be at home all the time because it's where you live, but then it's also where you work. So I'm no expert. I'm still trying to figure out best practices for that
too as well. And I feel like sometimes also working from home can be very lonely from like having that work environment especially. So yeah, it's like a work in progress, I guess. Yeah. I feel like every job too, like you need to learn how to set boundaries on like what's a healthy boundary and what's not a healthy boundary. So I think you're doing great based on what I've seen. And also you're doing social media.
Yes.
So I also wanted to bring that up. And like how?
I guess, yeah. So I have an Instagram account called Industry PharmD. And I made it right at the end of pharmacy school after I had accepted a fellowship. When I was in pharmacy school, I followed a couple of girls who were sharing their residency experience. And they talked about tips for applying for residency. And I was like, wow, this information would be so helpful if I was doing a residency. And I didn't feel like there was much information out there for those that were interested in the fellowship path. And I was like, well, this is kind of a gap and something that I think would be fun to explore. I enjoy being creative and I don't know, I guess just sharing content and educating others. So I created this page to kind of share what my fellowship experience was like and share tips for those going through the fellowship interview process. And yeah, it's just kind of grown over the past couple of years. Now I feel like I'm out of touch because I'm like, well, I'm not a candidate anymore. I'm not like directly in the program anymore, but it's still a great way to give back. And I was at ASHP Midyear in Las Vegas, which is the largest pharmacy conference in the world. And there were a handful of people that came up to me and said that if they hadn't used my guide for fellowships, that they like wouldn't be there having final round interviews. And that was just a really
That's amazing.
rewarding thing. And that's been the point from the beginning is like, how can we make this more accessible to pharmacy students that are interested in going maybe a more non-traditional path?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then I get to meet people like you.
Yeah, exactly.
So fun.
And I get to meet you and get to have you. And for people who are interested in learning more about this world, follow her. I'll have all the links linked down in the description. She's such an amazing person. I love you already. I think we're gonna be best friends forever. After this, what's a moment from your career so far that you're really proud of? I think you just answered that, but like, do you have anything else?
So a lot of pharma companies for their medical affairs teams or commercial teams will have these big hype. It's kind of like a hype meeting. Like they want to get everybody excited. They're typically in the fall and then in the spring. And a lot of times there are award ceremonies at these meetings too. So at the meeting last year, I got Rookie of the Year award,
Ah.
which was like having an external accolade was really exciting, but it was also just really, I don't know, just really cool to be recognized by my team in front of like a large chunk of the company for, I don't know, just trying to be as helpful and innovative as possible. And yeah, I was completely shocked, but that was a big like external moment, like, wow, like I am working really hard and it's not going unnoticed. And yeah, so I would say that was like a big tangible moment.
Yeah.
But then also I would say like the real thing that makes me the most proud or like feel like the biggest accomplishment is when student pharmacists come up to me
Yeah.
and they like thank me, or fellowship offers are going to come out soon. And so just like seeing people that I've connected with get fellowships and be able to start that next part of their career that they've been pursuing for so long,
Yeah.
that's like definitely one of the most rewarding things
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. Social media is a good and bad thing. And one of the good things is that, like, being able to use your experience and help other people out.
Yeah.
And so, what's an advice you would give someone who wants to sort of go down your path?
I would say they're always coming to me and to my colleagues and saying, I don't have any direct industry experience. Like I didn't do an internship, or I don't have any fourth year rotations in industry. How can I do a fellowship if I don't have that experience? I didn't have any direct experience in medical affairs. My internship was in regulatory affairs. But the best way that you can learn, and my best advice, is just to talk to people. I feel like the pharmacy profession is so open and willing to help, especially students. Like being able to play the student card and say like, I just want to learn is such an advantage. So my biggest advice is just to kind of cold call people, just reach out to them on LinkedIn and say, hey, my name's Rachel. I'm a third year pharmacy student. I'm really interested in pursuing a career in the pharmaceutical industry. I'd love to set up a meeting for 20 minutes to learn about your career path and what you do, and just like listen to any advice that you'd be willing to share. I think that's the best advice that I could give, is just to talk to people and gain their perspectives, both on their role as well as their company, what skills they're using, why they think it's a good fit for them. And you can really learn a lot about yourself and what the best fit is for you through those interactions. And we talked about jargon earlier. I feel like there's so much jargon in pharma and in biotech, especially if you're on more of the business side. So just talking to people and kind of being a sponge and listening to how they speak about it, you then will start to pick that up. And then once you have interviews, you really sound like you know what you're talking about, even though you've never done it directly yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you feel like you are the underdog. And especially if you do have an interview, you're like, oh, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to do. Listening to what other people say and sort of grabbing that lingo and putting it in your word, you're going to sound like you know what you're talking about. But yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great idea.
And I would say you could have as much like experience in the world before going into industry, but every company's different, every role is different. Like I still had no idea what I was walking in on, no matter how many people I spoke to. Like no amount of experience prior would have made me been like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. So also just being at peace and knowing like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm here because like they picked me is also just something that you need to, I don't know, be at peace with
and give yourself credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you did a lot to get there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like people, they underplay, myself included, underplay like the value that I have and the work that I do and all these things that like, even if I do get an interview, I'm like, oh yeah, but there's like 20 other people also getting that interview. So my chances are super slim. But then if you like give yourself a pep talk and be like, no, like out of maybe 100 applicants, I'm one of those people that they chose. So like sort of looking at it as the glass half full rather than half empty kind of thing also helps a lot with like, especially hard careers like this, like STEM careers in biotech pharma. It's demanding. It's very fluctuating. Like right now, the market is really bad and you have like layoffs left and right and all these things. So it's just like having the right mindset also plays a big role. So speaking of mindset, you sound like a person who you are so strong in what you want and you know what you want and sort of you fight for it and you work for it and you're such an independent employee because of what of the things that I've heard. I might be wrong. I don't know.
I like to think.
But what's a mindset you carried with yourself like throughout your career?
Kind of piggybacking on what we were just talking about, kind of making excuses or downplaying achievements. I think imposter syndrome is something that we all experience early on in our careers, especially in biotech or STEM. Your preceptor or your boss could have 20, 30 years of experience on top of you, as well as your colleagues. And it's so easy to compare yourself to them and be like, well, they know how to do this and they're doing that. And I feel like an imposter. I feel like I don't belong here. The mindset that I always tried to have when I started fellowship was like, they chose me to be a fellow because they see me as someone who wants to learn and who is able to learn. And I'm a fellow. Like, they did not expect me to be an expert. If they wanted an expert, they would have hired a senior director. You know, they wouldn't have hired a fellow. Like, the point of this is to learn and grow and ask questions. So I think I always tried to have that mindset that I was here for a reason. And a big part of that reason was just to be a sponge. And that made me feel a lot less like an imposter.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I used to say this line in my interviews. I don't know if it was a good line or not, but I would say, like, hey, when I was starting out, I'm like, I'm a sponge. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to grasp any information you give me. I am here to learn. Like, yes, it's an entry-level job, but that's the point. Like, you want entry-level people because you need someone to
be malleable,
to learn, do the work, do the grunt work that no one wants to do because you want to learn. And so reminding yourself too, like, sometimes I used to think like, oh, I don't want to do this, like, this is so basic work, but it's also work that you need to do early on so you could grow and not do it anymore, but also have that knowledge and grow into it to become like where you want to be eventually.
I'll kind of piggyback off of that too. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Likeable Badass.
I saw your story.
Yeah, I haven't read that much of it, but because I read it and then I get so excited and I'm like, I need to tell my boyfriend what I just learned, or I need to like call my friend and be like, oh my gosh, you will not believe what I just read in this book. But a big thing that they talk about is how you can grow your status. And status is such an important thing because it doesn't matter where you are in the power hierarchy. Like, you could be an entry-level fellow or a new grad working in the lab, but all based on your behavior, how you engage with others, how you show up, doing the grunt work that nobody else wants to do. You become a go-to person that people trust and hand things off to you. And the more you have that type of mindset, the more you grow in status. So you could be lower level, but have really high status. And that just makes you a lot more recognized. It's huge. And then once you have higher status, then you oftentimes are the one that is also going to grow in power because people like you and they trust you. So I'd recommend that book to everyone.
Oh, I'm going to read that for sure. So I want to talk about, how has your identity shifted as a pharmacist?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because in some ways, when I think of who a pharmacist is, I don't feel like one as much anymore in the traditional sense. But I think that's something that I need to work on and that we need to continue to work on as a profession, is that pharmacists can be in a variety of roles, but we all still have that same training. And that's what makes, I think, the degree and the job path so unique, is all the different things that you can do with it. So in the same sense that I'm not counseling patients on medications, or I'm not making recommendations to a physician or catching medication errors, in my role, my job is still to be that medication expert. And that's what the pharmacist is. And in addition to that, the pharmacist is somebody that bridges the gap between the physician and the patient and the ability to, take a medication. I remember when I was in pharmacy school, one of the first things I saw on a slide was a quote from a surgeon general. I don't remember which one, but it basically said that medications don't work in patients that don't take them, which is true. And I think the focus of that conversation was about why medication adherence is so important, but you can take it a step further and basically say patients can't take a medication if they can't access it. And that's another big part of what pharmacists do, is ensuring that patients are able to access their medication, whether that's talking to a health plan or a prescriber. And in industry, in my role, that's a lot of what we focus on, is you could have this incredible drug and really, really great data, but if a provider is not able to prescribe it, a drug plan, a medication, or a health plan isn't able to cover it, or the patient's not able to receive it in a health system, then it doesn't matter how good the data is if the patient can't get it. So that's also like at its core what a pharmacist does, and I still get to do that. So guess I have to correct myself and say, no, I do feel like a pharmacist. I'm just not in a traditional pharmacy setting.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like what you said also, like I've talked to so many people who used to be scientists and now don't work in the lab anymore.
Yeah.
But they work more as a project manager or project lead or X, Y, and Z, whatever, all these things. But it's at the core of what you're doing. It's not the backdrop that you have on like where you're sort of doing the job, but it's at the core, and your core is patient care, making sure patients are taking the medication, making sure people understand what the medication is all about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're working from home or you're working for big pharma or whatever it is, it's at the core what you're doing, and that's like what you want to do, especially as a pharmacist as well, which is pretty awesome to see. And so, what do you hope listeners take away from your story?
I hope that they, one, just learned more about what pharmacists can do. I think if we were to go on the street of Boston right now and say to somebody like, oh, what does a pharmacist do? They'd probably say they dispense pills. I think that's a misconception that we're still working through as a profession. So one, I hope they learned more about what pharmacists do and all the variety of areas that pharmacists can work. Two, I would say it's never too late to change career paths. We talked about my mom, but two of my best friends in pharmacy school had completely different careers prior to pharmacy school. One was a dental hygienist, and one had her master's in public health and did a lot of public health work. And they decided to go to pharmacy school after having kids, after like being married, and that was really inspiring too. So if this is a profession that interests you, it's never too late to pursue this type of profession or change it up and do something new completely. And then the third thing I would say is just for those that are starting their careers, it's intimidating and you can feel like an imposter. Most days I'm still like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is all new to me, but that's kind of the point. And I think I've learned that everybody is trying to figure it out.
100%.
I think everyone, when you're young, you think, oh, those adults know what they're doing and they have no issues. And then once you're doing it, you're like, no, we're all just trying to do our best and figure it out. And I don't know, it's just a reassuring thought.
No, I agree. After this podcast and talking to so many people at so many different levels, that's like not the key takeaway, but one of the takeaways is that people see an open door. They didn't know it existed, but they took it, and then that just led them to one thing, to another, to another. No one has a blueprint of what they want to do. Maybe if the only blueprint, don't quote me on that, maybe if you're in medical school, that's probably
it's pretty
straightforward. You know what you need to do and all that stuff. But I feel like anything outside of that, especially in the life science, healthcare field, there are so many turns and so many things you could do.
Which is so much more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You will always be successful, whatever door you take.
Yes.
And so I could talk to you for hours, Rachel.
Likewise.
This has been like eye-opening for me. I just so happy you came and we learned more about the pharmacy world. Like I knew about medical affairs. It was something I looked into too, like after thinking about like wanting to transition from lab to non-lab, but also seeing like pharmacists can do it as well. And also pharmacists can work in biotech, and pharma is such a great way to like sort of highlight those key roles on this podcast. The next step on this podcast, we do something called Career Corner. Career Corner is listener submitted questions where I just read the questions and we give our take on.
Let's do it.
So I'll be asking 2 questions. The first question is, what skills should I start building now if I want to work in pharma or biotech after graduation?
I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit. So I'm going to try to be a little different, but the ones that we've talked about, like project management is huge. And just managing timelines, managing deadlines, also just being self-sufficient and knowing, I don't know, where to go for things and maybe not asking questions right off the bat. I would say one skill, and this may be difficult to grow if you're a student. It may be a little bit more easier if like you're working in a job, but the mindset that I always tried to have when I was a fellow, but you could do this, I guess, in any role too, is like, what can I do today that will make my boss's life easier? Like what's something that I can do something I could take off of his plate or something I could take off of her plate. And just having that mindset of just constantly scanning for like, where's a gap or where is an inefficiency or where can I do something that makes somebody else's life easier? I feel like that's been kind of the key to being successful or just having people recognize and appreciate you in this industry, just going above and beyond and just trying to figure out, I don't know, how you can be a little bit more helpful.
I love that you said that because that's what I think. That's how I think. And that's how I always tell myself the same thing you just said. How can I make my boss's life easier? That's what I hold with myself every single day when I show up to work, because it does make a difference. And plus, like, if once you see that gap and you insert yourself in that gap, you will learn so much more than you ever thought you could learn, because you just put yourself in a space or place where maybe you normally aren't, and then you're just there and you're like, wait a minute, I learned X, Y, and Z, and that can help you whether in your current role or future roles as well.
Like when you're a student, you're kind of in a silo. Like you're only doing things to advance yourself. Like you need to study, you need to take your exams, maybe you're doing extracurriculars, but it's all from the perspective like, okay, I'm doing these things to advance and grow as an individual. I would say majority of roles, once you're in the workforce, it's you're not in a silo. Like everything you do is directing other people or is impacting other people. So just having that mindset and kind of being just a team player and always thinking about what others need is so valuable.
I completely agree. The second question is it realistic to break into industry without any connections? And how did you build yours?
Definitely. I think networking, cold calling is really valuable, and social media too is a great way to learn more, because there are so many people out there with platforms like our own that are willing to help and we want to share. Like no longer are the days where if you want to see what somebody does, you need to like be in person with them, shadowing them. Like now you can learn so much from logging into Instagram or logging into TikTok and watching somebody share what they do on a day-to-day basis, or just messaging someone and asking if they have time to chat. So you definitely do not need direct experience or previous experience. I think just finding people that are willing to share and then just scheduling time and picking their brain is the best way. And what I found when I was doing that, trying to learn more about industry pharmacy and all the different areas, is once I had a conversation with someone and learned about them, they would also ask questions about me. And based on what I would share, they would say, oh my gosh, like I know this other person that I think would be really, really great for you to connect with. So it's kind of just a web that organically grows when you put yourself out there and just connect with people.
No, I completely agree. I've had so many conversations like that. And as I said, you never know what door is going to open up just from a simple conversation. But also one thing I do want to add, when you do have these conversations with people, not to be in the mindset of like, what can I gain from them, but more of, I want to learn about you and learn about what you're doing and how you are. You will, whether you know it or not, you will learn something from what they say.
It doesn't need to feel so transactional, like you have something to gain.
100%,
Keep it authentic.
Exactly. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the pod. I learned so much from you. You are such a resilient, and from your mom too. You are such a resilient, your energy is so bright. I just loved your story. I am out of words. I don't know what to say.
That's great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you are truly a testimony of like being a woman in such a competitive field as well, and being in pharma and being biotech, and just like still going your way and doing the things that you love. And I'm so glad you came here, and thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope someone out there, I'm sure someone out there learned a thing or two from what you just said. And for people who are interested in learning more about you or following you on social media, where can they find you?
Instagram is the best place, at Industry PharmD. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Rachel Hawley, but all of my information, where you can find me, is all linked in my Instagram bio. So that's the best place to go.
I'll put that all in the description. I just want to say thank you so much again for being here. I had such a great time.
Thank you so much for having me. Likewise, this is great.
And for everyone, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.